Former U.S. President Donald Trump has once again weighed in on the Russia-Ukraine war, characterizing it in stark and emotional terms as a horrible waste of humanity. His remarks, which come amid the continuing violence and mounting civilian toll, underscore both his disapproval of the conflict itself and his desire to frame his own record as one of greater toughness and effectiveness in foreign policy. Trump lamented the devastating scale of human suffering caused by the war, citing figures that suggest nearly 7,000 people lose their lives each week as the fighting grinds on with no clear end in sight. He painted the picture of an avoidable tragedy, a war that in his view has spiraled into a catastrophic loss of life, homes, and communities, leaving not only the people of Ukraine but also ordinary Russians facing deep, irreversible wounds. In his comments, Trump directed his criticism at both Russia and Ukraine, expressing frustration with the continuation of the bloodshed and the inability to reach a resolution. While he stopped short of offering a specific new plan, he stressed that such destruction never should have reached this point in the first place. True to his rhetorical style, Trump sought to draw a sharp contrast between the present circumstances and his own time in office, repeating his claim that nobody was tougher than me when it came to dealing with world leaders and managing global tensions. The implication was clear. Had he remained president, he believes this war either would not have broken out at all, or it would have been resolved far sooner. Trump's choice of words, calling the conflict a waste of humanity, reveals not only his desire to project empathy but also his political instinct to frame the crisis in terms of needless loss and leadership failure. By putting the spotlight on the human toll rather than just the geopolitical stakes, he appeals directly to the emotional weight of the war, a strategy that may resonate with Americans weary of foreign entanglements and skeptical of the billions of dollars in aid being sent overseas. At the same time, the statement reinforces his ongoing critique of the Biden administration, which he has often accused of weakness and poor decision-making on the international stage. The war in Ukraine has already stretched on for more than 2.5 years, displacing millions of people, devastating Ukrainian infrastructure, and causing severe economic and political strains across Europe and beyond. Trump's remarks play into this larger context by framing the conflict not only as a regional catastrophe but as a global failure of leadership and diplomacy. His focus on the weekly casualty figures adds urgency to his argument, painting the conflict as not just a long-term drain on resources but a relentless tragedy measured in lives lost every single day. By quantifying the suffering, Trump strengthens the impact of his statement, making it harder for audiences to ignore the scale of the devastation. What makes his remarks particularly significant is the dual purpose they serve. On one level, Trump is speaking as an observer condemning the war, echoing the widespread sentiment that the human cost has been unbearably high. On another level, however, he is carefully positioning himself politically as the figure who could have handled the crisis differently or prevented it altogether. This dual messaging reflects a broader pattern in Trump's political communication, where empathy for victims is coupled with self-promotion as a uniquely strong and effective leader. By labeling the war a horrible waste of humanity, Trump also taps into a broader sense of futility that many observers feel about the ongoing stalemate. Despite billions in military aid, endless rounds of sanctions, and repeated diplomatic efforts, there has been no decisive breakthrough, and the front lines remain bitterly contested. Trump's words suggest that the continuation of this situation is not just tragic but fundamentally unnecessary, the result of poor choices and weak negotiation rather than an unavoidable clash. This framing allows him to argue implicitly that alternative leadership, namely his own, could bring about peace where others have failed. In sum, Trump's latest remarks about the Russia-Ukraine war combine emotional condemnation with political positioning. By focusing on the staggering death toll, he highlights the scale of the tragedy, casting the war as a devastating and needless loss for humanity as a whole. At the same time, by reminding audiences that he was tougher than anyone during his presidency, he uses the crisis as a platform to contrast himself with current leadership and strengthen his image as a decisive figure capable of ending such conflicts. Whether viewed as heartfelt empathy, political strategy, or both, his comments underline the ongoing centrality of the war in global politics, and in America's own debates about leadership, foreign policy, and the cost of human life in a distant but devastating conflict.